Merry New Year, my brother.
Merry New Year.
Merry New Year.
Gee, can't imagine what we could talk about this week.
The Islanders?
Who?
All right. Well, it's
Look at you. Look at you dressed nicely. What is this?
the middle of a work day. I got stuff to do. I do work. I know you don't believe it sometimes, but I do.
I don't.
I do work. I do work very hard sometimes, actually. Look, it's been a sad week in the world of sports, especially. It wasn't yesterday. It was the day before yesterday on Monday with the passing of. I don't think this is hyperbole. Two legends, literally two legends. One in
two very different sides of the spectrum.
Agreed, and neither would have made your Hall of Fame.
Probably not.
No, neither would.
Kemby would not have. Pete Rose.
No.
Probably not.
Pete Rose won one MVP. He led the league in hits 3 times. He hit more. I don't think he hit more than 17 home runs in any year. Yeah, he's the all-time hit leader, but he is the Don Sutton of position players. He's a compiler. And there's nothing wrong with that. He had 200 hits like 10 straight years. There's nothing wrong with that. But
yeah, I actually think he probably would have made my Hall of Fame. He would have been on the low end. But when we did our baseball, I'm pretty sure I had him in. I would have to. I mean, we haven't done it in a couple of years.
I will tell you, I would not have had him in. No chance.
As a player, you would not have had him in?
No.
Forget everything. Forget all the ancillary.
No, forget all the crap. Like it's funny because I am a Pete Rose apologist. Like
you are, which is why I find this surprising.
I've been a Pete Rose apologist for most of my life. I mean, there's no getting around that. I have been. He was underrated. He was overrated. You could make the case that he was at times both, right? Right now, I think you can make the case that, quite frankly, he's an underrated player. To that point, you putting him in your inner echelon Hall of Fame, not inner echelon of the inner echelon.
Yeah, he would be on the outskirts.
Your small Hall of Fame, as opposed to my big Hall of Fame. Certainly,
you just said you wouldn't have him on your big Hall of Fame.
No, I wouldn't have him in a small Hall of Fame. I'd have him in a big Hall of Fame. He is not one of the top 50 players in Major League Baseball history.
Probably not.
Okay. I would find it quite. I think it would be interesting whether I would have him in the top 100.
I would assume so. I mean, when you go back to, he was the third best player on the great Cincinnati on the great Big Red Machine teams, behind Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan.
Okay.
He was not the best. So he won 3 championships. He won 2 with Cincinnati, 1 with Philly.
Mm-hmm.
In 80.
He was not the best, but he was not even close to the best player on that Philly.
Schmidt won the MVP that year.
And Carlton was a Cy Young. So you Schmidt and Carlton. And you can make the case that Tom Seaver was on those Reds teams too.
Was Seaver on those teams in 75 and 76? I don't think so.
76, he got traded to the Reds. So I think he was on the 76 team. I'm not sure.
He got traded in 77 for Pat Zachary.
Okay, then no, he wasn't on those teams. So you're right. Okay, so
look at me showing you up with my baseball knowledge.
More importantly, look at you showing me up with baseball knowledge on my favorite, one of my 5 favorite players of all time.
There you go. Seaver. Tom Seaver was traded on June.
He was traded for Pat Zachary, Doug Flynn, Steve Henderson, and some other guy. So
and Norman, him I don't know, but I knew he was traded for Pat Zachary.
Yep. So we all know I love the comparables on Baseball Reference. His Baseball Reference comparables, similar batters. Now this is just batters. Paul Molitor, who you would not put in that
role,
right?
Robin Yount,
Tris Speaker, who you might.
He might.
Ty Cobb, who you would.
Robin but I also wonder if Cobb was an earlier generation of Pete Rose.
Well, if war also does war take into account the 1920s guys, right? Like the same ways that it does today. You don't have the fielding statistics that you did back then.
Yeah,
Like
it's hard to compare.
if you just want hitting, that makes one thing. If you want to make fielding into this, I don't think you get there. So let's take out everybody pre 1920. So it's Paul Molitor, Robin Yount, George Brett, Derek Jeter, and Lou Brock. And Johnny Damon is number 10, by the way.
Well, 5 Hall of Famers and one guy who was famous for other things.
So, again, how many of those guys in that list are your inner echelon Hall of Famers? 2?
1. I think 1.
Well, I put,
Maybe
you
2.
know I have an affection for Yount, so I'll
I wouldn't have Yount there.
okay.
I'd have Brett.
Well, then it's just George Brett, right?
Brett. Yeah,
I mean, is Jeter in there for you?
he's on the precipice.
The only reason Jeter's in there is because shortstops suck.
Yes.
If he played any other position, he would not be in anywhere close.
He was a shortstop with 3,600 hits and 5 world championships.
Right. Right.
But again, does that make him a compiler? Now, what was different was it wasn't like, except for 1 year, he was still hitting. He wasn't hanging on for hanging on, which Rose did.
So if you look at Pete Rose, right? Pete Rose played 24 years.
Yes.
I think it was 24 years, 24 seasons. Okay. The last All-Star game he made was in 1980. Oh, he made one in 85, but I think that was probably just.
That was ceremonial. He was 44 years old.
Yeah, he batted 264. So from 1983 to 1986 combined, he played 4 years. He played 463 games, so about 110 games, 116 games a year. He hit no home run. He no home runs. He had 2 home runs for the 4 years. He had an average of 38 RBIs and an average of 100 hits. So 100 hits in 116 games ain't bad.
No,
if you're a part-time player. The problem is he wasn't a part-time player. He played. And, I mean, you can take away all the nonsense that happened afterwards.
well,
It's interesting how we look back now at his game as opposed to when he was playing, right? Because if you look at when he was playing, and granted, we don't have the analytics that we have now, but think about this. When he was 24, he finished 6th in the MVP voting. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
For the next 7 years, he finished in the top. For the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, he finished in the top 10 of the MVP voting. Then he finished 7 out of the next 8 years in the top 15. And 8 out of the top 10 years in the top 15. I mean, yeah, we didn't see him live for the majority of his career.
In his prime. By the time we saw him, he was hanging
the people
on.
that did see him, the media that saw him. Now, granted, Pete Rose was the ultimate media guy, but for the players and fans and media that did see him, they thought he was a top 15 player in the National League each and every year. So that's saying something. It's like we say the Pro Bowls don't matter, but the All-Pros do, because the All-Pros are voted on by the people who are playing the game and watching the game as opposed to the fans. So if you're an All-Pro in the 1970s, you can't compare that to a Pro Bowl in the 2010s because they were voted on by the people that watched him. So you know what? Like I said, Pete Rose was underrated there's a great article, I was reading it earlier today. Is it possible that he was underrated when he came up, he was overrated while he played, and he's underrated after he retired? And the answer is yes to all three.
Seems about right. Because you can't separate out what he did. It's just after the fact. The first thought you have of him, the most prolific, Compiler or not, he has more hits than anyone in the history of Major League Baseball.
4,256.
56, yes. But the first thought that comes to mind is not he is the all-time hits leader. The only thing that really comes to mind is he was permanently suspended from baseball for betting on his own team.
First thing that comes to mind is he's an ultimate scumbag. The unfortunate, that's the first thing that comes to mind, is that not only did he bet on baseball, which obviously was never proven, but it was proven in the Dowd report.
It was proven in public opinion. It was
proven in public opinion. Not only did he bet on his own team to win and to lose, which makes it even worse, as you are the manager of that team. It's one thing to bet when you're an NFL player on your team. It really is, because you have control over X, whatever X is, your one position, right? There was Calvin Ridley, right? Calvin Ridley bet on his team. Even when he was hurt, he bet on his team. And he got suspended for a full year to do it. But even if he was playing, he still would have been the wide receiver. That's it. That's the only thing he would have done. He would have been a wideout.
You could have dropped an extra ball or two.
Right. And when you are the manager and you're betting on your team, or even worse, betting against your team, you have complete control. And it's never been proven that he bet against the Reds. But in my take, if you bet on the Reds at all, you have bet against the Reds, because if you have bet on a Monday, and I'm going to bring up a name that you probably haven't heard in a while, but the best pitcher on those Reds teams was
which year are we talking about?
Mid-'80s.
Tom Browning?
Go before Tom Browning.
Not Jose Rio.
Go before Jose Rio. So Jose Rio was on the World Series championship team with Lou Piniella in 1990.
Yes, Tom Browning was before that, I believe.
Go before him, though. Right before him.
I assume you're not talking about Seaver.
I am talking about Mario Soto.
Mario Soto? Okay.
Was the best pitcher on those teams. By far. Not even close. He was an all-star. And if you're betting on the Reds, you are going to keep your best pitcher in, or maybe not keep your best pitcher in for that day that you bet on the Reds. You're going to use up your relievers on the day that you bet on the team to forsake the next day when you didn't bet on the team.
Yeah. You can't. This is an all or nothing proposition.
And to me, go ahead. I'm going to sneeze, so go ahead.
No, I mean, to me, I don't know how you can reconcile this. I don't know. Supposedly, and I'm sure you read the Athletic articles, they were talking about that Mike Schmidt and Tom Seaver, I think it was Tom Seaver, maybe it was Joe Morgan, got him a meeting with.
No, it was Johnny Bench.
Was it Johnny Bench? Got him a meeting with, I don't remember if it was Seelig.
Yeah, whoever it was.
Whoever it was, maybe Manfred. And they said, look, if you do A, B, C, and D and stay out of all casinos and everything like this, we'll start to reconsider this. And he literally left the meeting and went to a casino. I mean, he did it to himself.
There is
he was not. It's not like this was a beloved person. He was the guy you loved to have on your team and hated to play against. But this is not someone who invokes a lot of sympathy about his life.
So I think I've mentioned this numerous times that I was a Rose sympathizer when I was a kid, and continued to. I wrote articles for Kids Day. I wrote articles for Newsday saying it's not as bad as this. It's not as bad as that. It's never been proven he's bet on baseball, so let the guy into the Hall of Fame. Okay. I, like J.D. Vance, can change my mind. So I do.
Wow. Didn't watch I watched 30 seconds of it last night.
I will tell you, I have no problem with any politician saying you've changed your mind. Ever. Yeah. You're allowed to do it. So am I. And guess what? I changed my mind. Because after he was given the way forward and thoroughly flaunted it and said, I got a way forward. After he started signing balls, Pete Rose, yes, I bet on baseball to promote his book.
Yep.
When he did all that, I lost it. I just lost all sympathy for him and labeled him a scumbag. Like that's it. I don't if he should not go into the Hall of Fame now any more than he should have gone into the Hall of Fame before. No. You don't get a pass because you're dead. You still did it. If the right to the Hall of Fame is you don't bet on baseball and you bet on baseball, that doesn't mean that because you died, you all of a sudden didn't bet on baseball. That didn't happen. I don't want to see him in the Hall of Fame right now at all. And you talk to the 20-year-old Sean, and he was like, yes, I want to see him in the Hall of Fame. No, I'm done. I'm done. Totally done with it. Any more than I want to see Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. If you cheat the game, you cheat the game. I'm done with it. Totally done with it. And yes, there are cheaters in the Hall of Fame.
There are cheaters, there are racists, there are anti-Semites. I mean, we all know this.
You can't retroactively take people out. Also, OJ would be gone, right? I mean, right? You can't retroactively take people out unless you're the NCAA and you can remove Heisman trophies. But again,
no one's pulling Cap Anson out of the Hall of Fame for being the biggest racist in there.
Or Ty Cobb. Right? Or Ty Cobb for betting on baseball because he did.
Was it him and Napoli-Joy?
Him, Napoli-Joy, and Dutch Leonard, I think, was the third one.
Yeah, he was.
So, yeah, you're not taking them out, but you don't have to put good money after bad. And putting Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame is essentially putting good money after bad. I'm done. All right. Let's switch gears from the scumbag to probably the nicest guy in the world. And I'll tell you, Rose didn't hit me as hard as Dikembe did.
Yeah, well, because Dikembe was a contemporary.
Maybe Dikembe was 58. That's true, right?
He was a contemporary.
Yeah.
We remember watching him in college. When we were in college, watching him hold the ball with the biggest smile on his face while he's laying down when Denver beat Seattle as the 1-8 seed in Game 5.
It's iconic. It's an iconic photo. And look, we'll get into his accomplishments in a second, but I had two occasions to meet Dikembe Mutombo. The first one was at the Olympics in 1996. And my brothers and I are walking through Atlanta because that's what you do in the Olympics. You'll see that when we go to Los Angeles, when Carly lets you go. Carly
better chance she's coming with us, but agreed.
Is there like ice dancing that she can go to while we go to something else?
I'll try.
Okay. So anyway, I'm walking in 1996, and that was the summer that the Hawks signed Dikembe Mutombo. And I look at my brothers and I go, "That's Dikembe Mutombo." He's walking across.
Did your brothers know who Dikembe Mutombo was?
Yes, but they didn't know what he looked like. They knew of Dikembe Mutombo. They did not know.
Neither of them are basketball guys.
Right, exactly. So walking across, and I'm like, "Guys, that's Dikembe Mutombo." And they're like, "No, it's not." And I go, "Okay, I'm telling you that is Dikembe Mutombo." And they're like, "Well, if that's Dikembe Mutombo, go up to him and say hello." Okay. I mean, what harm is it? He's walking with a big umbrella, and he is walking with little to no entourage. Unlike Shaq, who was like in a limo, Dikembe's walking with nobody. So I walk up to him, I look up, and I go, "Mr. Mutombo, can I take a picture with you?" And he looks down at me, and he goes, "I cannot stop, little man, but if you'd like to take a photo and walk with me, we can do that." And I'm like, okay. So Jay took a photo, and they are two photos up to my head and then the rest of him. So that was instance number one. And look, that may be a Mutombo fan for life, right? I mean, you get that type of interaction. So later, when I moved to Atlanta, Dikembe was made his home in Atlanta, along with Lamar Odom and a couple other people. And I saw him at my gym. I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Dikembe, thanks for the blocks." And he goes, "No problem." I was like, you know what? He didn't have to do it. He could have just said whatever. And that's just me personally. That's not even what he did for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Put 15 million into a hospital in the Congo. True humanitarian, really was kind of him and Hakeem were the precursors for basketball in Africa. Obviously Hakeem was the first, it was prior to him. Hakeem came out in 94. Dikembe was
84,
excuse me. Dikembe came out, was 93, 94, something like that. The Billy Owens draft. No, it couldn't have been 93, 94. It'd be 91, 92, something like that. It was not, was an all-time great defensive player. I think he was a 4-time defensive player of the year, led him second all-time in blocks, probably 7 or 8-time all-star. I don't have it in front of me. Never considered one of the best at his position, I don't think, but one of the best defenders of his time. And, would not have, as you said, would not have made my small Hall of Fame as a player, as a humanitarian within the sports world. I'm not sure who the most apt comparison would be. Roberto Clemente?
Yeah. I mean, look, you're right. He's a 4-time defensive player of the year. He didn't make the All-Star team in 3 of those years, by the way. 2 of those years. He didn't make the All-Star team, which I find funny. Because All-Stars are for offense, right? They're not for defense. Yep. They're just not. And he averaged total rebound. He averaged 10.3 rebounds per game and only 9.8 assists, 9.8 points per game. He was a better Mark Eaton. I mean, that's the best comparison I can think of.
Doesn't really make him a Hall of Famer, if that's where you're going with.
It doesn't make him a Hall of Famer until you put everything. Remember, also basketball is college, right? And him and Mourning together, the Twin Towers at Georgetown. He averaged 15 points a game at Georgetown. 15 points and 12.
He averaged probably close to that. He averaged probably close to that in the NBA too.
No, I just said what he averaged.
What did I didn't hear it.
He averaged 9 points a game, 9.8, really? And 10 rebounds.
That shocks me. I didn't think it was that low.
Yeah. Well, his first, until he turned 35, and again, we don't know how old Dikembe really was. I will say that in the nicest way, but we don't. But if you take his 25 to 35 years, he averaged 12.3 points and 12.3 rebounds. On 52% field goal percentage.
Yeah, it seems about right. I would have assumed he averaged somewhere between 12 and 15 a game.
Then he never averaged 10 points a game again. So he played until he was 42. So he played from 36 to 42, and he never averaged more than 6 points a game, and he never averaged more than 7 rebounds a game. So he held on, right? He held on because when you're Dikembe Mutombo, you can do that. And he also held on, for another $30 million to contribute to hospitals. Look, that man, taller people that are that tall don't live as long as normal size people. They just don't. It's been historically said that. So It's unfortunate that he passed away. He will be remembered as the antithesis of Pete Rose.
Yeah.
Like, it's just simple, right? The antithesis of Pete Rose.
Not as good a player, but much more beloved.
Much more beloved. Okay. Let's move over to current basketball on the eve of training camp. And
Let's
my
let's
God.
bring it up. Does anybody like this deal?
No.
Nobody seems happy.
No. There are people that like this deal.
For which side? For Minnesota?
I think Minnesota management loves this deal.
Right, because it gets them off $240 million
Well,
and gets them under the apron.
Well, it does a couple of things. Okay. Those things, certainly. It puts two guys that actually, I think Randall and Gobert work together. Okay. Much
Agreed.
better than Towns and Gobert. And it also gives them a guard off the bench, which they were hoping that would be two rookies because they didn't have anybody off the bench as a guard. They have Nodis Reed as a forward, but they didn't have a guard off the bench. So now they have a guard off the bench. They have a power forward that can play with Gobert. Their defense will be okay because you have Rudy Gobert, so it'll be fine. Their offense may take a little step back because Julius Randle, quite frankly, is a wannabe Karl Anthony Towns. He wants to shoot three-pointers. He just can't hit them.
Yeah.
At the clip that Towns does. Clowns. He called clowns at some point. I'm sure the New York Post will have clowns at some point this week.
The first time he shoots 3 for 14 from three-point land.
And he's going to do that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Towns shoots about 40% from three. I think he shot 41 last year. Randall hasn't sniffed 35. Randall doesn't shoot. The offensive mix for Minnesota, and the funny thing is, these are my two favorite NBA teams. So it's like, are you kidding? And I remember having this conversation with you last year, maybe on the show, where you said, do you want Karl Anthony Towns? And I said, no. I said, absolutely not. I do not want him. And I didn't want him for free. Last year we were talking about getting him for free, and I didn't want him. A little bit of shit here and a little bit of shit there. I was like, no, I don't want him. So Minnesota, it works for them. I do. I think Randall will sign a 2-year extension there because there's no money. Oh,
Hold on one quick second.
Yep. There's no money for him anywhere else. And then you have excuse everybody. Max is my cousin's dog, and he just saw the Amazon truck. So Max is barking. So I think it works for Minnesota in a couple of ways. It keeps their payroll down because Randall's going to earn less. Randall and DiVincenzo combined will earn what Towns does. So it'll keep their payroll down. They get more of a bench. They don't have to rely as much on Dillingham. And the question is whether Julius Randle resigns. If he resigns, this is a huge win for Minnesota. Huge. They even got a protected first-round pick out of this somehow. Does it work for the Knicks? There is one way that this works for the Knicks. One, they have to be a top 5 scoring team in the NBA. It's the only way. And do you believe in them being a top 5 scoring team in the NBA? I don't know.
I think they could be. I mean, look, that starting 5 is really,
yeah, but where do you go from there?
I don't know.
Put that on paper and tell me that this is a better team. You can't.
No, because we have Towns and Thibodeau didn't work together very well the first time.
Correct.
And that was when Towns was the number 1 option. He is not the number 1 option on this team.
Correct.
And it is
I'm not sure that matters.
That Thibodeau and Towns did not get it. I guess because Thibodeau, they both had to sign off on the deal.
Right. No, I don't think it matters that he's not the number 1 because Brunson will be the number one, and when Brunson's on the bench, Towns will be the number one. Like I don't think that matters as much. I think what matters is defensively, this team is 100% relying on OG Anunoby to play 75 games,
which has never happened.
Yeah. They're relying on this starting five to be Iron Man starting five. Towns has played over 60 games twice in the last 5 years. OG has, I don't know the last time OG has played more than 60 games. Okay, he's Iron Man. We got that. Jalen Brunson is Iron Man. We get.
But Jalen Brunson was broken down by the end of the year.
Right. And Josh Hart, we know, is the absolute Iron Man of all Ironmans.
And he was broken down by the end of the year.
But that was 1 year, right? Now you're playing another year. And your bench consists of – who's your bench consist of? Deuce.
Mitchell Robinson when he gets healthy.
They're going to re-sign Marcus Morris probably. And Jericho Sims.
And I was going to say Precious.
And Precious. That's the bench. The bench is non-existent.
The other issue is, for the first time in 25 years, the East is stronger than the West is right now.
Oh, no way.
At least you can legitimately make that argument.
You can make maybe the top-heavy argument, but not the whole argument.
Not the bottom four, but the playoffs. When you go through that top six, top seven in the East, because I look at the West. Oklahoma City is really, really solid.
Denver is really, really solid.
Denver has no bench. None. Zero.
Right, but neither in the Knicks and neither does
Philly. Denver has no bench. Zero. Name one guy on the bench for Denver.
Russell Westbrook. Well, you asked me to name somebody, so I did.
And how exactly is that going to play?
I get your point. Just trying.
Let's keep going through very quickly. We're not doing our NBA preview this week.
No, we're probably gonna do that in 2 weeks. Actually,
the Clippers are taking a step back, to say the least. Dallas, nobody thinks Dallas was that good. They just got hot at the right time.
I do.
You think Dallas is a finals team again? You picked them last year.
Team in the West.
Would you take Dallas over the number 4 team in the East, over Milwaukee?
Yes.
Maybe.
I'm down on Milwaukee, but yes.
Okay, fine. Cleveland, Orlando.
Yes, and yes. Okay. Both of them.
Okay. The Lakers are old.
Yep.
Sacramento is a mystery.
A 6 seed. They're a 6 seed.
Just trying to think off the top of my head who else we're talking about.
You got Minnesota.
Minnesota is very solid. But right now, Oklahoma City is the best team. I think is the best team in the NBA.
Memphis is going to make a huge comeback.
If they can stay healthy. Jalen Jackson's already hurt again. That came out today. So they can't stay healthy. And so it's hard for me and who the hell knows where John Morant's head is going to be this year. I know where it should be. So we have, so this is not a strong West as it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10, 15, 20 years.
I get it.
And in the East, Boston is the defending champion.
Sure.
The Knicks are very good. If Embiid stays healthy, Philadelphia is very good.
Yep.
Milwaukee, we'll see it. We'll see if Milwaukee works. Cleveland as a regular season team is excellent. Orlando is getting better. Indiana made the conference finals last year.
I think you're trying to make the point that the East is on the way up and the West is on the way down. Yes, I will concede that 100%. I will. But I hated this trade when I heard it. I hate this trade.
I know you did.
Now.
I knew the answer before I even heard from you. I think as soon as the first thing I saw is, Sean is not going to be happy. Because number one, I don't think you wanted to give up DiVincenzo.
No.
But who it turns out wasn't happy in New York. Who knew?
I didn't know that. I still didn't know.
Yeah. Apparently he was not. He thought his playing time was going to be decreased by all the signings. So he didn't care about the Nova boys part.
Wow. And it would have. There's no question it would have.
Yeah. So he wasn't happy. Randall's never gathered much love in New York, is probably the best way to put it.
That's true.
So I don't think he minds going somewhere else.
Well, Randall was never appreciated. Is 100% true for what he brought to this table, and he wasn't appreciated by me either. I'll tell you that flat out. Randall was a third-team All-NBA player
2 years ago. Yeah.
The last time the Knicks had a All-NBA player before Jalen Brunson
Carmelo,
was Carmelo, which is what, 10 years ago,
probably
12 years ago, right? And before that, it was Patrick Ewing. So I mean, he is in this. For New York lore, he is an esteemed company by making an All-NBA team.
But his game was awkward.
His game was old school. That's why you loved watching him, but you didn't love him as a person that would be a championship player. Because that doesn't happen, right? So just to put it, okay. So Julius Randle was All NBA twice. You want to name the 1, 2, 3, 4 guys that were more All NBA than Julius Randle in Knicks lore? 4 guys.
Ewing
is one. He was 7 times All NBA.
Was he ever first team All NBA?
By the way, for the guy being you that believes that Ewing wasn't very good. So just want to point that out. By the way, Ewing better than Mutombo?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay. Ewing is number 1.
It's relative. I don't think Ewing was better than Robinson or Olajuwon.
No, I agree with that.
I think Ewing is a bottom.
And part of the interesting thing is Mutombo played at a time where it wouldn't have mattered who. He played a game. He played a Bill Russell game, right?
Yes.
That's the game he played, right? 10 points, 10 rebounds, right? He played at the wrong era for Dikembe Mutombo to gain notoriety.
Yes.
If Mutombo played in the 60s, he would have been Bill Russell.
He would have been Bill Russell Jr. Yeah, I agree.
Right? If he played today, he would have been Rudy Gobert.
Yes.
He just played at the wrong time because he played in the perfect – there are 2 golden eras of centers in the NBA. To me, there are 2 golden eras. There's the early 90s, right, or maybe mid-90s when Shaq came out, right? You have
Shaq, Olajuwon, Robinson, Ewing,
right. Then you have the 60s, right, the late 60s, early 70s, where you have – Bellamy, Lanier. Yes, I know I'm Chamberlain.
That's who you're starting with?
No, I'm just saying because I don't want to forget.
Can we start with Russell, Chamberlain, and Abdul-Jabbar?
I don't want to forget that there's also other guys.
You had Lanier was more the mid 70s. Bellamy was in the late 60s, early 70s. Nate Thurman,
Willis Reed. I'm just saying. So the late 60s, early 70s, or the early to mid 90s. Are the only 2. Those are the golden eras of centers in the NBA. And Mutombo played in one of those golden eras when he wasn't the same play. It just wasn't. It wasn't his game.
His game wasn't suited for it. So to go back quickly to your
give me the other ones. So you got 3 more.
Okay, so there's only 5 or 6 guys it could be.
Okay,
Carmelo?
You're not going to get one of them. One of them is old. You're not going to get one of them.
Harry Gallatin?
No, he did it twice.
Still pretty good. Tricky Dick McGuire?
No, Dick McGuire never made it. He made it once.
Okay, I was trying to think of old school. There's only 5 or 6 guys. Carmelo
did it twice.
Bernard King?
Twice.
Okay. Willis Reed?
Willis Reed did it 5 times.
Well, he was probably third team a lot. Walt Frazier must have.
That's 6 times. And then the 4th guy you won't get. It's Richie Garrett.
That was who I would have gone next with as an old school guy.
Okay.
Okay.
But those are your 3. nobody else but those 4 guys has more All NBAs as a Knick player than Julius Randle in history. That's something. And then
It is.
I mean, so to your point, yeah, he was underappreciated. He played a game that is not today's game. He played a bully ball game. He would have been perfect in the 1990s Knicks and Heat.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he's a better Charles Oakley.
Yeah, I can see that. Not quite as tough. Better
But
score.
Or better, fine. He's a better Anthony Mason. That may be
Same idea. Not quite as tough. Better score.
right. But Mason had more range.
More diversified. Mason has had a more diversified game. So
yeah. So I saw the trade and I was like, you're all in. You've used up everything. Your pot is empty. They have 10, I think it's 10 second-round picks still in their cupboard, of which are worth almost nothing. I hate second round.
agreed. They'll get guys in Europe. They'll store them for a couple of years, and hopefully 1 or 2 guys.
They got 1 first-round pick from Washington, which will probably not convey. And they have they have the swaps from the Nets, right? They get the swap rights the Nets have. They get the other side of the swap, whatever that is. And that's every other year. And that's it. That's all they got. So, and they emptied the cupboard. And I think it was Tim Bontemps said it on the podcast, the Hoop Collective. He goes, you for years the Knicks stacked up all their assets in hopes of getting a superstar player, being Donovan Mitchell, being Luka, being LeBron James, being somebody of that ilk. And they spent their treasure trove of assets this summer for 2 players, and neither one of them is a superstar.
Yeah, but they're 2 B-plus players.
I think they're 2 A players. I just don't think, but they're not A-plus players. Right?
No, they're not. But how many A-plus? There's 5 A-plus players in the league. So I mean,
well, I think we said this a couple of years ago. How many guys can you claim are the man, right? In the NBA, Luka, LeBron.
Can you still claim LeBron to be the man?
Sure.
Okay.
All I want is 1 game. Kevin Durant, Jokic. I'd even put Devin Booker in there. I think Devin Booker could be the man. Giannis. Donovan Mitchell.
Embiid, if he's healthy.
Sure. Embiid. Jason Tatum.
I guess.
Okay. So that's 9.
Yeah,
so maybe
there's
probably
2 or 3 others.
Maybe there's 10, right? 10 to 12. But neither one of them is Brunson a superstar? No, because he can't play both sides of the ball at a superstar level. All those guys that we just mentioned can play both sides of the ball. Even Luka can play both sides of the ball. We saw it. So you used up all your treasure trove of assets, and now you are hard capped. You're done. You have no assets. Your bench is Deuce, Mitchell Robinson, if healthy, and whatever you can get for Precious Achiuwa, because you know damn well he's going to be traded. Because if he's not traded, they don't have a backup wing.
Josh Hart?
No. Josh Hart is starting.
Yeah.
Your backup wing right now is Landry Shamet. That's what I'm saying. Like they
yeah, he's a 2-3 swing. Yeah, I got it.
There's no depth. So are they built for?
You also have it that you have 4 borderline all-stars.
I get it. You are. It's funny how you are seeing the rose color of this, and I am seeing the total opposite.
Yeah, I don't particularly love the deal for them, but I also wonder they were never going to get Embiid. That was who they've really wanted all these years.
Sure.
They weren't going to get Paul George. Who was out there that they were going to get?
I get it, but who were they bidding against too?
Yeah, I don't know if they needed to throw DiVincenzo in there.
No. This trade I get, right? It's the combination of both.
Well, look, the Mikal Bridges trade, he's a wonderful player, but it's 5 first-round picks.
Yep.
And look, the first-round picks may not be worth anything because they may all be in the mid-20s, and so be it. But, yeah, you're
Are
giving
you
up
a better?
you also remember, at some point there's going to be vet min guys who will sign for the shot at a ring. It always happens.
Well, I get it. I gotta tell you,
Look at my team, dude. My best player is Ben Simmons.
Yeah, but you've had finals runs. I have not.
Well, that's why you're miserable with life.
Thanks so much.
That and watching your team score 9 points against Denver.
But I saw my team make a playoff recovery and have one of the most exciting game 161s in history.
Yeah, I figured we would get to that at some point. Jeez.
Well, we got 14 minutes to get to it. So
this was the easiest show we've ever had.
One of them.
1 death, 2 death, 1 trade, playoffs. Done.
and wait. Before we get to that, we'll get to that in 3 minutes. We as we do on the Seth and Sean Sports Radio show, this is our weekly update from Seth Kamens.
I know
what is the Daniel Jones bubble wrap for where are we?
Thursday was the end of it for me.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
I know that.
So you have said October 28th at one. You started saying week 12. So you started saying right after the bye week, which is November 24th. Last week you upped it to week 8, which is Pittsburgh, at Pittsburgh. Have you changed your tune to the team?
No, I'm good with that. I think they'll be 2-6 at that point.
And that's it.
They'll win. They're going to win one of these games. I don't know which one. But by that point, I mean, this schedule is miserable. Seahawks are a playoff team. Bengals are fine.
Oh, I get it. I'm just saying you're sticking with week 8.
Sticking with week 8.
So when they go to Pittsburgh on a Monday night, Drew Lock makes an appearance, if not start.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Oh. All right, Daniel Jones, you have one more nationally televised game. You play Sunday night against the Bengals at home. That may be your last home game. You play the next week too. I guess that's
Cam Ward may be walking through that door.
Who's Cam Ward?
Oh, you haven't read up on the quarterback. He's the quarterback at University of Miami.
Oh, Cam Ward was also the goaltender for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Panthers when they won.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so not Carson Beck, not going to get that high.
Do we talk about Georgia, Alabama? I actually
shut
the game. I shut the game off. I had no idea it got that close until after it was over.
Me neither. I'm not in Georgia. I'm not in Georgia this week.
Sure.
The world doesn't revolve around Georgia Bulldog football when I'm not in Georgia. It revolved around the Mets making the playoffs on one of the most exciting games I have ever seen. And I missed Lindor's home run.
How?
Because I was on calls while I'm watching the game. So I caught them when they were down. I caught them making the comeback. I caught them again down. And then my phone rang and I answered it. And I turned around and I was like, oh, we're up again. How the heck did that happen? Lindor hit a home run. And then yesterday, they come back again. And they make
against a great Milwaukee relief crew.
Yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, after Diaz gave up those runs, I thought it was over. Not only game 1, but there was no way they were winning game 2 if they lost game 1. 0 chance. Because they had blown through their bullpen. So that was going to be the end of that. But yeah, I mean, Mets are in the playoffs. They're up 1-0 over Milwaukee. There are playoff games going on right now. By the way, I did at the beginning of the year, by the way, I know this, pick Bobby Witt to win the MVP. He won't win the MVP, but
no, he won't. But God, what a player he is.
And yesterday, the one run, by the way, it's 0-0 Tigers and Astros in the what inning are we in?
It's in the
Inning?
fifth.
Fifth inning. The Royals start in 40 minutes, and then the Mets start in 4:30 my time. Yeah, 4:30, so 3 hours from now. I will be at a cozy little bar watching that game. Happy New Year.
You don't want to hang out with Arlen for that one?
Happy New Year to all. That's the way I celebrate my New Year. No, it's exciting time. The Yankees obviously get the bye, right? So they're not playing for a while. When does their season start? They start on Saturday at 6:30. So congrats, you made the playoffs again. Until you do something in the playoffs,
you've been in the playoffs 15 out of 16 years and haven't made a World Series.
None of it matters. But I did want to ask you this.
We've become the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow. Okay. You don't want that. You don't want that moniker. That's a bad moniker to have. You don't want that. You don't want that. Juan Soto going to resign?
Yeah.
For more than Judge?
Yeah.
$110 million between the two. It ain't your money.
It ain't my money. If it's not us, it's going to be you.
Oh, God. Well, I'll tell you, I don't want them to re-sign Pete Alonso. So Pete Alonso's going to go one place and Soto will be in the other place. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are I'm assuming you're feeling pretty. I assume you don't see yourself as beating Philadelphia.
Right now, I first of all, I didn't think we'd win game 161 or 162 because I am a Mets fan. So I didn't think we were going to go to Atlanta.
No. This is not a Mets thing. This is all of your teams combined.
I will tell you this, though. If I was actually in Atlanta and went to those games, we definitely would have lost both ends of that doubleheader. No question.
I agree.
Just
no question.
Right. Like I am going to 3 Syracuse games on the road. I envision going 0-3. I am going to visit C.
Well, you're going to the UNLV game?
I am. That's what I'm saying. So that's game 1. That's a loss. That's going to be a loss.
With their new quarterback?
Yeah.
How screwed up is this situation?
They scored 50 points.
Without him.
Yeah. We talked about him last week. So, yeah. So, but, yeah. So I'm going to 3 Syracuse games away. I envision going 0-3. I'm going to 2 Jets games away. I envision going 0-2. And there is no way on God's green earth I'm going to a Mets game until they make the World Series because I will lose that game too. So, no, I'm good for now. Yeah, I'm good for now. And in any other year, Francisco Lindor would win MVP. In any other year.
I don't know about that, but he would have been the MVP this year without Ohtani.
Well, and Bobby Witt would have been the MVP.
Bobby Witt had an all-time year. Francisco Lindor.
That is true. That's true. But how many times do you have all-time years? I mean, right?
Well, you said he would have been the MVP in any other year.
Not any other year, but I will tell you
Witt would have been the MVP in 8 out of 10 years, or 7 out of 10 years.
One day you were gonna look on Baseball Reference and see Bobby Witt's 10.4 WAR. And say, how did this guy not win the MVP? He's going to be in the same boat as when – I think – did you freeze?
No, I'm here. Sorry.
He's going to be in the same boat of how did Ted Williams lose the MVP when he won the Triple Crown? Like, that's going to be the same – it's going to be the same type of question. How did Bobby –
Talk about Lindor or talk about Witt?
No. You're going to look at Witt and Ted Williams in the same boat and say, how did that guy with that type of season not win the MVP?
No.
Yes.
No, because Williams got robbed. I don't think people think Witt's getting robbed here.
No. You're going to look – I'm just saying you're going to look at his stats. I'm not saying you're going to look at him.
Yeah, no.
You're going to look at a 332 average with 32 homers, 109 RBIs, 31 steals, and an OPS plus of 171 and say, how did this and a WAR of 9.4, and say, how did this guy lose the MVP?
Well, the difference is Williams, because the year we're talking about is 1941.
Well, it's twice.
Well, he got gypped once as a Triple Crown winner and once as a 400.
Right.
Because the Boston sports writers wouldn't vote for him because they thought he was an asshole.
Right. Well, he had Pete Rose syndrome, except in the opposite, because they loved
Except he was much, much better. I mean,
right. Everybody loved Pete. So, all right. Last 4 minutes. Go right ahead, sir.
ESPN have anybody left worth reading?
No. And I hated Zach Lowe.
I know. I know he was one of your favorites. I thought he was the best writer on ESPN at this point. Yeah, ESPN's got some real problems because they're cutting salaries left and right. Zach Lowe, who's ran the Low Post, which was a pretty popular podcast. He was a great NBA writer. He would write kind of like the Peter King almost of writing basketball. Got fired last week, I think, out of nowhere. Pretty much, it seems like it was a contract issue. They didn't want to pay. They didn't want to pay him the 7 figures anymore. But Woj left. Now again, Woj retired, but Woj left. Lowe's gone. It feels like ESPN is really starting to cut some stuff out. You know,
Yeah.
Griffin's gone, Ponder's gone. Not that I care about some of these people, but I hope Lowe ends up somewhere where I can consistently read him.
I think you're going to see him on The Ringer because I think Bill Simmons is going to bring him back. The Ringer.
Right, but that's only going to be podcasts. I like to read Lowe.
That's
I mean, does The Ringer do any articles anymore, or is it just podcast after podcast?
No, they do some articles. I don't read them very often, but they do. But you're right. I was going to bring up Zach Lowe here as well. Zach Lowe was my favorite. The Low Post was my favorite podcast. His articles were my favorite articles. They were. After Peter King, it became Zach Lowe. Like, it was very simple. And for somebody that, it's funny how my migration away from the NBA for so long, and even without the Knicks being relevant, my migration back to the NBA was only because of certain people, right? It was only because of the Zach Lowe's, the Tim Bontemps, the Brian Windhorst. It's podcasts. It's stuff that I can listen to and learn as opposed to spending the time reading. I can just go to the gym and listen. And Zach Lowe, Buster Olney, and Peter King, 1, 2, and 3 in some order are my favorite guys. And so far, ESPN hasn't let go of Buster Olney, but who knows? That could be soon too.
If ESPN loses baseball, they got a problem. You know.
Yeah. For Seth Kamens, I'm Sean Palmer. For those that are celebrating a very happy and healthy and sweet New Year, and we'll talk.
And may this year be better. May this year be better than the last.
And we'll talk to you sometime in 57, whatever year it is. Okay. Talk to y'all later. See ya. Bye-bye.